Hi, I'm Donna Phillips from That Beautiful Mind, and I want to talk today about illness in a child with autism, or more specifically about how to recognise the signs that your child is not feeling very well. Now, Alfie was non-verbal up until the age of just before he was 4. So we had the added sort of difficulty that he could never voice if he wasn't his sort of feelings. And even if he could have voiced them, to be perfectly honest, he didn't recognise his own feelings. So we had to learn from a really early age and sort of educate his key workers at preschool to be really aware of any changes in his behaviour, because that's the only way we could really tell that he was either not feeling too good or was about to come down with something. So Alfie would do one of two things. He would either get really aggressive, so not the usual meltdowns. He'd be aggressive like pretty constantly, and sort of very touchy and didn't want people to touch him more than usual. So that would be sort of a sign where I'd think, okay, is he in some sort of pain? Is something is something sort of brewing? And the second sign that we would have is that he would go very quiet. So he'd just not play. Well, he didn't play the same way as other children anyway, but I mean, he wouldn't do the things he would usually do. So he'd love his trains, but he would just be a bit more disengaged with them. I wouldn't say he necessarily moped around a lot and laid around a lot, because that would have given us quite a quick indication he wasn't well. If anything, he was just quieter. So whenever those two things would happen with Alfie, I would sort of go through a mental checklist in my head, because I have other children that haven't got autism or additional needs, and I found with them, obviously, even from a very young age, when they were in pain or hurting or not very well, they could either vocalise it, so say, "Mummy, don't feel well, head hurts, tummy hurts," or they would point, so they'd point to an area of their body if something was hurting, or they'd limp or something like that. So I'd be able to tell quite quickly that they weren't feeling very well just from what they would sort of say or point to, their actions. So it was a struggle to try and find out how to know with my own son that he wasn't well. In fairness, I mean, it's every mum's sort of nightmare, you just feel like a really crappy mum to not know when your child's not feeling well. I remember I would go down when he was sort of little. I might go down and cuddle him, and he didn't like to be cuddled, or try and sneak a quick kiss in, and suddenly I'd be like, oh, he's hot, and then realise that he's actually got a bit of a temperature, or I'd have to sort of notice, is he more flushed than usual, because he's not usually flushed, but he didn't, like where some kids have a temperature, they go really bright red, he doesn't. So I'd have to sort of pick up on those signs, and it just made you just feel like, oh my God, my child's been suffering, and how long has he been sitting there, feeling that way? Obviously it wasn't days, but even a few hours of a child being uncomfortable or in pain, as a mum, you expect yourself to know this stuff. So a message that I do want to put out there to any other sort of parents that are watching this is, don't beat yourself up. You're not the first parent to not know that your child isn't very well. You really aren't. I mean, hands up, there's been hundreds of times with Alfie I've just felt so guilty, and I sort of knew quite quickly the signs to look out for. But in a busy life and just running the house and just day-to-day stresses and work and things like that, sometimes you do miss the subtle signs, and then you feel really bad. So yeah, just don't beat yourself up about it. But in terms of hints and tips to sort of give you to notice with your own children, I would just say you have to just sort of be really observant, because the body doesn't lie. So even though Alfie couldn't process his own feelings, he would literally, at the beginning, it would be, well, when he couldn't verbalise anything, he'd just be sick. Once he could verbalise and he understood the word, he'd be like, sick, and it would just happen. But once we sort of knew he had no warning, all of a sudden Alfie would just, it happens. I had to just look for his body to tell me. So sometimes, like now, if I know he's not feeling too good, I will look for the signs that say with sickness, I just automatically keep bucket somewhere near him, but you'll see, you know, your mouth goes, you know yourself, there's physiological responses, so dry mouth, and I recognise those signs. You just have to sort of be hyper on it, like completely. It's like watching every single observation. Is he sweating? Does he feel hot? Does he feel cold? You know, it could be that with your child, some children bang their heads, like, you know, bang their heads a lot for stimming or for sensory seeking, or sensory overload. But sometimes if that increases, or if that happens, it's not happened before, it could be a sign that your child's got a headache. I mean, I'm not medically trained. These are just the things that as a parent I've sort of managed to pick up on. So it might help you. But in terms of pain as well, Alfie copes really different with pain. He can go one of two ways, really. He if he hurts himself, and I'm trying to use an example, say he stubs his toe and it doesn't hurt, you know, something that would hurt somebody, but he sort of just continues on. So small pain, he just continues on. Things that should hurt him don't really hurt him and never have done, even from a young age. But when he has really hurt himself, not excessively needing to go to the hospital, but I mean, you know, where he's banged his head, fell over, and especially if he's scraped his knee or there's any sort of blood or scratch or anything like that, he will have a delayed response to the pain. So it's like the pain doesn't hit him for 10 or 20 seconds sometimes. And then when it hits, it's sort of like he goes completely blank and it's not flushed, it's like a pale colour but with blotches. It's probably specific to Alfie, but he just goes a different sort of colour. And I don't know if it's just the build-up of pain, suddenly it all hits him at once, and then he goes dead quiet, and you just know it's coming, and then it is meltdown, absolute meltdown. And it's like, they're some of the worst meltdowns are the ones that happen when he really has hurt himself. When it comes to that, there's nothing you can do except for the usual things you do with your child to comfort them in a meltdown and make sure they're safe, try and cut out the sensory input that's going on. For Alfie, it's often just putting a blanket straight over him, so it cuts out everything. And deep pressure works with Alfie. He doesn't really like hugs too much, he's got to be in the mood, but deep pressure does help to calm him. But the quickest way as well is to just make sure anything in sight for Alfie, so if he scratched his knee, he can see it's in sight, is to get a plaster so he can't see it. Now, I'm lucky now, Alfie will have a plaster, certain plasters, but when he was younger, oh no, he wouldn't have plaster, he'd scream at cream, the whole shebang, but he could still see the scratch, so we just had to sort of, you know, quickly put cream without him seeing it and put a sock on, for instance, if it's low enough, or cover it with his trousers, or wrap him in a blanket so he couldn't see it, but nothing was necessarily covering it. So they're my experiences up to sort of now with Alfie. It does change as they get older. It's like, just as if everything, raising a child with autism, you just got to sort of have psychic abilities, superhuman observational powers. And do you know what? It doesn't matter how hard you try, how much of a good parent you are going to miss it. You are going to miss times. It is going to happen where you're just going to feel bad and feel guilty and feel terrible and feel a bad parent. But I'm just here to tell you, you know, you're doing a great job. We've all gone through those days. We've all missed things with our children. Even my neurotypical children, you know, as a mum, we miss things anyway. I think it just makes us feel a bit more guilty because our children are a little bit more vulnerable. So we feel it more. But yeah, I hope that this has really helped you to understand that, you know, there are some subtle signs that you do get, or that I get. Every child is different, so your child's signs may be completely different to mine, but I think it is worth just, what I started to do is take notes as well. It sounds a bit, you know, but I just started to take quick notes down when he wasn't well, of anything that had that I noticed it was weird, because after the occasion you always say, oh, well, he's been acting a bit strange today, actually, blah, blah, blah. Well, it took me years to learn to take notes, but I did start to take a few notes, and then I saw a few, oh, he did that last time. So so that might help. I will do another video about helping your children to take medications, because Alfie is a nightmare. So yeah, I'll talk about that in another video. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel, and you can follow me on social media. All right, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.